Over the last 6 months, I've been publishing to a map pins, hidden courtyards, Art Nouveau entrances, Art Deco frescoes, spiral staircases, iconic locations, and much, much more, all in preparation for this Budapest and Beyond, my hidden adventure photography tour and workshop here in Budapest this weekend. What we're going to be looking at is 5 questions given to me by my workshop participants. There's 5 of them, a question each. The things that they kind of bug them the most about architecture photography, it could be about travel, it could be about Budapest, whatever it is, we're going to answer it in this video and show you some of the behind the scenes. We're about halfway through the day actually, day number 1. It's been pretty fast-paced start to the day. I'm currently in this entranceway kind of near the Parliament building in Budapest, and actually Art Deco entrance. I believe this street is around 1910, so that kind of period. And I'm just photographing this entrance, this pink lower section, white section up the top, and then this chandelier kind of up here. And I've framed it up looking like so. Come and have a little look. Okay, so I'm here, 17 mils. So I'm doing 3 brackets, 2 stops apart, ISO 400 as you see here. But actually, the thing that I really like about the composition is not that, and that's all quite simple. I'm just going to pull the trigger on the central shot, but when I shift the lens to the top, which is what I'm now doing now, you're going to see a really nice sort of curvature that's created. If I brighten this up so you can see it, there's a nice curvature that's created on the top section. So you've kind of got these kind of bend inwards, so that's kind of nice. However, I've got to straighten things out a little bit. We're a little bit off. So I'm just going to move that around. Get that into position. Make sure that we're nice and straight on that. And we're kind of there, that's the top section. And then we'll go back to the middle, make sure everything's decent. You saw there, light just went off, which was good, so the timing was pretty good on the shot itself. Moving up to the top, change my focus point as before. 2-second timer's activated. People were just walking past the window, but it doesn't matter actually because I'm at the top shifted. And then I'm just going to refocus onto the bottom, just down here, just to basically finish up that shot. Hopefully it's better than my first attempt, which was a little bit out of focus. Let's check it. So the floor's a little bit off, but the thing is what we're going to do is we're actually going to crop that very heavily. So the bit that matters is the top section here. One of the questions I got today, the first one actually, I've not had too many actually, but one of the first ones that I got was about tripod positioning. And of course, my answer for that is always to scour the scene first, have a look around. So, you know, you basically just walk the space, check it through, then position your tripod. And once you're in a nice set position, it makes framing up that composition much, much easier, and you can kind of focus on it on the back of the LCD. So the first question I got today was about that kind of positioning, where's good. Difficult stuff to do in this kind of environment is people management, avoiding the people, the crowds that are coming through. These are kind of public buildings, a lot of these, even though they've got that decay, and we're trying to avoid the people, but just being patient is the key. And that was something we had to go over a little bit earlier as well. When it comes to and getting unique images. I think we're all doing quite a good job at that, because when we walk into a place, we're not trying to photograph everything, and that's also really important, which is something I did try and tell the group earlier on as well. So for now, there's not been too many questions, but I think it's going to change, especially as we move into tomorrow morning with more courtyards, more lines and more verticals that have to come into play. But we'll see. So far, so good. People are just getting used to it, so getting the feel for the photography. Okay, so it's the first spot of the day. We've already had a couple of questions. I overlay the first one into the video, and that occurred when we were photographing looking up the staircase at the skylight above.
If I had a real camera, would it be able to capture the iron metalwork at the top of the skylight?
You mean the details, yeah?
The detail, yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Retaining detail in the shadows as well as showing detail in the highlights, how we achieve that. And essentially that is in the form, of course, of bracketing. On a mobile phone that's incredibly difficult, as I explained to Deborah, but also in DSLRs, as other people were shooting with, the same question occurred. How many brackets? How do we retain the detail in the highlights and the shadows? And the answer, of course, is dial in your settings for your brightest exposure, then work out from there how many brackets you need working backwards. So in other words, we worked out that it's the same to do 5 brackets 1 stop apart as it is 3 brackets 2 stops apart, looking at your brightest exposure, dialing in the settings of f8, focusing on the sort of first part of the architectural detail. So in this case, it was the ring of the spiral, and then everything after that is nice and sharp. On manual mode, 3 brackets. The middle bracket was 1 stop under exposed, to then give us 1 bracket that's 1 stop over, and then 1 that's 3 under. I mean under the 0 mark on your exposure meter. On a wide angle lens, it's incredibly difficult to get out of focus areas at that focal distance at f8. So that's why we're composing our scene, getting it locked in, 3 brackets or 5. It's really up to you in personal preference really, but I always opt for the 3 because it just saves a bit of space and time. Also, ISO could be even just 200. It doesn't need to be as low as 50 or 100, because all you're doing there is increasing your shutter speed and making your time on site longer. And when there's other people shooting, you're just taking the space up for longer. So that's essentially what we were doing. The next question came in the form of editing and pulling those files together, and that came from Kevin.
When I stitch multiple photos together, like that, bracketed photos, I used to, in Lightroom, do the basic edits on the middle bracket, and then sync the other brackets with those settings before merging them. Now I've seen you tend to do it the other way around. You merge the brackets and then edit the final photo. Is there a difference?
And Kevin basically said to me, James, I've seen in your videos that when you edit your photos, you don't do like checks on the files first before you stitch them together. And that is incorrect. I do usually, but you don't see that very often in the video. So what I mean by that is we do some fine adjustments, just tweak individual raw files and then merge them into a HDR or luminosity mask. I usually just check through them, but you don't always see that in the videos because of the time we need to record videos, and I'm always conscious of this. I don't try and put too much in them, but in the future there is some editing videos coming up on luminosity masking, on HDR, in blending, in both Lightroom and in Luminar Neo. So keep an eye out for those and you'll see them very soon. Let's get on with the day. I'll show you the staircase, I'll show you my shots, and we'll get to the next location. It's been quite an eventful afternoon. We actually had a little coffee break and then we actually decided to head on back into the courtyards on the more touristy parts of Budapest, which some have been nicer to look at, but more problematic than others. So for example, some have been hit by the tourist train constantly over the last few years. They've been on a lot of blogs and stuff, and we actually got kind of, I suppose, a lot of disgruntled residents at the last one we went to. But the thing is, in Budapest, there's so many places to go photograph and shoot. We decided to make our move, come to the next one, and we're photographing this beautiful staircase. I've actually just finished my shots. I've also been capturing some textures and some details, which I'm going to talk about in a later video. But for now, I'll put my shots on the screen from here in this staircase, and I'll answer another one of those questions.
So James, how many locations do you normally get done within a typical workshop day?
So of course the answer to that question from David simply is that it depends on the speed of the group. It's quite an ironic question actually, because he's actually with me in a later photo tour, and actually we've now been in a location much longer than planned. So of course the speed of the group depends how much you get through in a day. Especially if somebody's new at architecture photography, it can take them a while to get to grips with it, understand it, and frame things up. Some people are more nervous with a camera and in these kind of locations because it's not natural for them. Other people have got more experience, like myself, say, and I can be in and out a location pretty quick these days, 30, 45 minutes. But generally, groups, of course, are slower. You're waiting for each other, you're in each other's shots, and it takes time to frame things up and get the kind of shots that you're wanting.
I only have my ND filter. How will that work versus if I had a polarizer?
Do you mean would it help you out in this location?
Yeah, how can an ND help me out with a little bit of rain?
So the ND filter is going to help you with making your exposure longer. So that'll of course blur the rain out and you won't be able to see it, but it'll also help you with some of the greens in the foreground to make the image pop a little bit. It won't be as effective as a polarizer, but it will help cut through some of the glare a little bit in the windows and on the rooftop where the sheen is.
Cool, thank you.
So we are wrapping up the day back where I actually published a video from a couple of weeks ago, and it's actually this courtyard with this cool little spiral staircase just in the back end of it in the servants' passage. There's actually 3 or 4 vantage points for the guys to actually take photos. This level, the one above, has exactly the same staircase opposite. Once we've finished here, we will move on inside the staircase to shoot from it and down it, of course. That's pretty much me for this video. I've got one more question for you from Dominic. I'll pop that on the screen now.
For this shot, do I take a handheld or my tripod to get the best shot?
Yeah. Are you going to bracket or are you going to do single exposure?
Single exposure.
Okay. And of course, the answer to that question is, of course not. You could easily do this handheld. It really depends on your style of editing and style of photography. If you didn't have a tripod, you could easily just boost your ISO up, photograph the architecture straight on, but making sure to keep it nice and sharp. Your shutter speed is double your focal length at least. And because it's getting towards dusk, blue hours starting to come upon us, that might be a little bit more tricky. So you might need to raise your ISO up 200, 400, 800 handheld, could even be 16 if it gets that way as well. So no, you don't need to. Okay, so I'm actually going to take my final shot of the day, and I'm actually going to use exactly that technique as I've just described, because I'm going to use my 15 or 35 to shoot down this staircase handheld, because it's very difficult to get a tripod in position here. So I'm actually going to do exactly the technique that I just described, boost the ISO up and essentially raise up, I can lower the aperture, raise up the ISO, focus, nice and, I can actually push the lens in maybe 20, 24 mil, nice and steady, take the 2-second timer off and then get some nice handheld images. So let's try and do that now using my Canon R5. For once, I'm going to put my strap on because I don't want to slip, I don't want to have any problems. Put my strap on so the camera doesn't go anywhere, and then we're basically going to hang over the edge and shoot looking downwards. Beautiful spiral staircase shot. Let's have a go. So Hope you enjoyed this video. Got any comments, leave them below. And until next time, see you all very soon. I'll put the results on the screen.